Imagine for a moment a courtroom. A person is on the stand recounting an event, their words holding the weight of truth, or so we believe. But what if that truth, that memory, isn't entirely their own? What if it's been subtly, even unintentionally, shaped by the very process designed to uncover it? Welcome. Today we're diving into a topic that sits at the intersection of psychology, justice, and human rights: suggestibility and the profound importance of ethical interviewing. It's a conversation about how we gather information, particularly when someone's life or liberty hangs in the balance, and how we ensure that our quest for answers doesn't inadvertently distort the very truth we seek. At its core, suggestibility is about how vulnerable an individual's memory and testimony can be to external information. Think of it as the mind's tendency to absorb and integrate new details, even inaccurate ones, when prompted during questioning. This isn't about malicious intent. It's a fundamental aspect of how human memory works, and sometimes doesn't work. The more specific term, especially in legal and investigative contexts, is interrogative suggestibility. This describes a person's vulnerability to leading questions, the subtle pressure of an interview, or even negative feedback from an interviewer. We often measure it by how much someone yields to a leading question, or how much their answer shifts when they feel pressured. It's crucial to understand that suggestibility isn't uniform. It's influenced by many individual differences. Children, for instance, are notably more suggestible than adults, but it's not just age. Factors like low self-esteem, high anxiety, certain emotional states, or even something as common as chronic sleep issues can fatten someone's susceptibility. Cognitive impairments, specific memory deficits, and mental illnesses also play a significant role. Even something seemingly simple like speaking in a non-native language or experiencing high cognitive load, feeling overwhelmed or unfamiliar with a subject, can make someone more vulnerable to suggestion. The consequences of suggestibility are grave and far-reaching. They include erroneous testimonies, the formation of entirely false memories, and perhaps most chillingly, false confessions. These aren't just theoretical concerns. They lead to real-world injustices, wrongful convictions, and shattered lives. Cases like the Central Park 5 and the West Memphis 3, where false confessions, often induced by coercive and highly suggestive techniques, came to light, have painfully underscored this reality. This isn't just an academic discussion. It's a trending topic for a reason. Persistent concerns about miscarriages of justice keep suggestibility and ethical interviewing front and center. Renowned researchers like Elizabeth Loftus have spent decades demonstrating the inherent unreliability of human memory and its astonishing susceptibility to distortion by suggestive questioning. Her work continues to challenge our assumptions about eyewitness accounts and the very nature of truth. Globally, there's a growing consensus, exemplified by the United Nations-endorsed Mendez Principles, which advocate for a shift towards non-coercive, human rights-compliant interviewing methods. This represents a powerful global movement, signaling that the ethical responsibility for suggestibility is increasingly being placed not on the interviewee, but on the questioner, particularly when dealing with vulnerable populations. So, if suggestibility is a reality, what does ethical interviewing look like? How do we safeguard against it? It begins with a set of core principles designed to ensure accuracy, fairness, and respect.
First, accuracy and fairness are paramount, emphasizing factual information and a strict avoidance of misrepresentation or leading questions. Next, informed consent and confidentiality are non-negotiable, ensuring interviewees fully understand the purpose of the interview and that their privacy is protected. Transparency and honesty mean being candid with interviewees, providing avenues for follow-up or fact-checking. Impartiality and independence require mitigating personal biases, ensuring the focus remains solely on the issue at hand. And finally, respect for autonomy means allowing for free speech, accepting responses like "I don't know," and ensuring the right to withdraw from the interview at any point. To put these principles into practice, specific techniques have been developed and refined through decades of research. One of the most fundamental is the use of open-ended questions. Instead of asking, "Did you see a red car?" an open-ended approach might be, "Tell me everything you remember about the vehicle." This encourages free recall and minimizes leading the witness. Building rapport is another cornerstone, establishing trust and a comfortable environment that facilitates truthful disclosure. We also rely on evidence-based protocols, specifically designed to minimize suggestibility. For instance, the cognitive interview, developed by Ronald P. Fisher and R. Edward Geiselman, uses scientifically validated techniques to enhance memory recall without introducing contamination. For vulnerable individuals, especially children, The National Institute of Child Health and Development, NICHD protocol, provides a structured, non-suggestive framework for interviewing. Crucially, ethical interviewing means avoiding repeated or suggestive questioning. With children, repetition can subtly imply that their initial answer was incorrect, pushing them to change it. It also involves actively mitigating interviewer bias, preventing interviewers from pursuing a single hypothesis or seeking confirmation of their own preconceptions. And in our diverse world, cultural sensitivity and the use of trained intermediaries are vital to account for cultural nuances and ensure effective, unbiased communication. Perhaps one of the most powerful tools for transparency and accountability is simply recording interviews, providing a clear, legally defensible record of the entire process. Researchers like Gisli H. Gudjonson, who defined interrogative suggestibility, and Elizabeth Loftus, a pioneer in memory research, along with James Clark, Stephen Ceci, and Maggie Brooke, who have done extensive work on child suggestibility, have shaped these practices. They and many other dedicated professionals collaborate with law enforcement, legal systems, psychological associations, and human rights organizations like the Association for the Prevention of Torture, all striving to embed these ethical standards into practice. Despite these advancements, the journey isn't without its challenges and ongoing debates. The reliability of memory and eyewitness testimony remains a hot topic. Neuroscientists increasingly advocate for caution regarding undocumented testimony, given how easily memory can be influenced, especially under stress. False confessions and wrongful convictions continue to be a major ethical and legal concern, constantly reminding us of the human cost when suggestibility isn't properly managed. Interviewer bias is a persistent, subtle challenge. How do we ensure interviewers don't inadvertently or even deliberately influence testimonies through their own preconceptions? There's also a continuous debate about balancing information gathering with ethical safeguards. The traditional, often confrontational interrogation methods are slowly giving way to modern, evidence-based approaches that prioritize rapport and human rights, a shift championed by the Mendez principles.
Suggestibility in child witnesses presents a unique ethical dilemma. While their heightened suggestibility is established, how do we best minimize suggestive influences in forensic interviews to ensure the veracity of their allegations? And for psychologists who develop investigative interviewing techniques, there's an ongoing ethical challenge of ensuring these methods protect interviewees, particularly vulnerable ones, and grant them sufficient agency for free disclosure. This requires explicit discussion of the methodological limits and ethical boundaries of our research. Finally, there's the significant hurdle of the practical implementation of ethical guidelines. Despite established principles, consistently applying them in real-world, high-pressure investigative environments is tough. Issues like informed consent and confidentiality can become incredibly complex in chaotic settings, and interviewers often grapple with dual roles and conflicting pressures. Looking ahead, the future of suggestibility and ethical interviewing is clear. It points towards a continued, unwavering emphasis on adopting and rigorously implementing evidence-based, human rights-compliant methods. The increasing international acceptance of the Mendez principles is a powerful testament to this. We can expect ongoing research to further refine specialized interviewing protocols, especially for vulnerable populations. There will be an increased focus on comprehensive, hands-on training for interviewers, moving beyond theory to practical application in real-world scenarios. This will go hand in hand with greater scrutiny on mitigating interviewer bias and a deeper understanding of the ethical responsibility that rests squarely with the questioner. Transparency will also be a key theme, likely through the wider adoption of interview recording. And in the research community, we'll see more explicit discussions about the boundary conditions of psychological techniques, ensuring they are applied not just effectively, but always ethically. Ultimately, understanding suggestibility and embracing ethical interviewing isn't just about adhering to rules. It's about protecting truth, preserving justice, and upholding the dignity of every individual involved in the investigative process. It's a collective commitment to ensuring that when we seek answers, we do so with integrity, empathy, and an unwavering dedication to accuracy. Thank you for joining me on this important discussion.